Yo guys, Saber here, welcome to the video. This time we're going to take a look at TLG's new meta report. I know we're not the first ones to publish a meta report this season, but I like to believe that the extra time we spend on it means that it's of really high quality. So you can see the background picture here is Tunnel Drill. That might actually already give away what the tier 1 deck of this season is. So if we just scroll down a little bit here to tier 1, then of course we have Line Pockets at 4.75 stars. That's one of the highest ratings we've ever given. I don't think we've ever given anything 5 stars. We had a few 4.75 star decks, but these are usually decks that are super broken. I think Line Pockets is kind of going a little bit under the radar because it doesn't feel degenerate in any way. It's not like I've had decks before, it feels like you can't do anything. And I honestly think it's kind of close to the case with Line Pockets, but the difference is that it's because a lot of people are not playing it right. Like it's probably a little bit more difficult. Some of the decks we had in the past, like when Skomegalol was released back in July, and it was just super strong. So now we just got Line Pockets. And obviously it's very good, right? We got a bunch of buffs for the deck. The Shakedowns, the Dib and Puntas got buffed, the Leader got buffed, we got a new card in Cleaver, Siggy got buffed, Tunnel Drill got buffed, so we got so many buffs to this deck, and honestly right now this is just super strong. It might take a few games to learn how the deck plays out, but in general, regardless of what MMR you're playing at, you can take this deck and you will get really good results. We also made a little video for it here on the console, so you can check that out if you're looking for some advice on how to play it. Next up, we got a Raka Swarm. And I'll be honest, this is a deck I never really liked too much myself, but it is a deck that is very strong right now, and one of the only decks that, well, can compete with Line Pockets, and honestly just has a lot of good matchups. So as you can see, you're playing an Erden version here. When you're playing Erden version, you also have some movement in the Bruiser just to make that more consistent. But the general idea of a Raka Swarm doesn't change regardless of if you're going for an Erden version or not. Obviously, if you're going into a lot of Skellige, you might say, okay, maybe I'm better off just mulliganing away the Erden. But for now, I think with a Raka Swarm being so popular itself, obviously it's a very strong mirror card, and the matchup against Syndicate, where it's also really good. So right now Erden just makes sense. But if you start queuing into a lot of Skellige, if you start queuing into a lot of Nilfgaard, where they can sometimes queue your Erden or go double cross into it, then it might end up being a bad card. But essentially the deck just very good at staying very low to the ground, boosting with the Bone Talisman, hopefully Triss into another one, maybe Yen, and you also have the Rakas Behemoth. And it's just difficult to like, there are no efficient ways to deal with Swarm right now that aren't like all in tech cards. So like there are no Lacerates right now, there are no Crushing Traps, no Lamberts, none of all of this stuff. If this deck becomes a little more popular, we could see that sort of thing happening. And that's probably also the reason why this is only 4.5. Because honestly, I feel like in terms of how good the deck is, it's not, like right now, it's not far behind Line Pockets. But the issue is that if it starts becoming very popular, people will take against it, and then it will drop. You can't take against Line Pockets. Line Pockets is kind of immune to text, which is why it has such a high rating. There are no cards that just instantly makes that matchup like really good. But as for this deck, I mean, Erden, Lambert, Rope Punish, there's a bunch of stuff you can do to take against it. So this is tier 1. These two decks are really good. But let's move on to the decks in the next tier. So first off, we got the Chinese Meta Breaker. I also did a video on this one, and honestly, this deck feels really good to play. And it might look a little bit weird at first. If you've been playing a lot the last week or so, you'll probably notice this deck. So there's a few differences compared to the version I used to play right in the beginning. Mainly, we have cut the Brigades for Slave Hunters, and then we're running another Emissary. And the idea behind that is that by doing this, you get rid of the Ducal Guard, which decreases your chance of your Vigo high rolling the Hunting Pack. And you're just giving you 2 other good targets for your Joachim in the Slave Hunters. Because, you know, the Slave Hunters, they have a Simulate, they have damage. They will usually die if you play them from hand later on, but they're really, really good Joachim targets and can be really fine round 1 as well to set up a nice coup on something. But in case you haven't seen the deck before, the general idea is just to go Joachim round 1. It's more appealing if you have the likes of Usurper and Brathens in hand, because otherwise you might pull a very good card. But go Joachim round 1, go coup and Joachim, play for a lot of tempo, and then you go into later rounds and you start just like usually, like the thing is, by going for that combo, you usually win round 1, right? Like either the opponent goes down 2 or you win the round, which means that they cannot beat out your ball. And then when you get to round 3, then you can shuffle back the Joachim with location, and then you can play Cantarella to pull the Joachim again. So you can actually go Joachim 4 times, which is why Buscher's calling his video for quad Joachim, right? Quadruple Joachim. It's a really, really strong combo, a little bit abusable, and of course you can also just try to YOLO the Cantarella and try to see if you can high roll the opponent's win condition. And we got Blaze of Glory, only at 4 stars, and this is a deck that, like, I'm sure if you're watching, like, a lot of you guys will probably be saying, oh, Ice is so broken, Ice is so OP, I'm so frustrated with this card. And I get you. Like, I'm not trying to say that Ice is a fine card, but the thing is that the rest of the deck and what you need to play to make Ice good is not always good for you. This deck, like, when you think about the matchups you're going into, if you take, for instance, Swarm, you don't really have any punishes. Like, they don't go tall, so all of your damage from your leader doesn't really do anything. And it might be very difficult to set up the Bloodthirst for Ice because they're just playing 1-point tokens and boost them. Line Pockets as well, very difficult to set up the Ice because they have immune cards like Sir Skewertooth. They have shakedowns to protect their damage units. And, you know, even if you do manage to set it up, then quite often the Drill and the Cleaver just outvalue you in a bleed situation. Against Double Cross, you can quite often manage to set up in long run 3, but sometimes you still lose because Ball is more points than Ice, at least can be in a long run 3. So against a lot of the other top decks, this deck is just falling short a little bit. If we take the next deck as well, here we have Vi, which Blaze of Glory also struggles against, because sure, you have this big play, but you can't set up the Bloodthirst because you're not playing very many tokens, or well, low strength units that you can damage. And it's just going super tall and you don't have a tall punish for it. So while Blaze of Glory looks very good on paper, and it's probably very good if you're trying to play some homebrew, like you're trying to make your own deck work, right? And then you play Blaze of Glory and it just absolutely crushes you. That feels very devastating. But against the meta decks right now, it's just not very good. So next up, yeah, Vi. This deck made a comeback. I can't say I'm particularly happy about this comeback to Vi. But it's a deck that makes some sense right now. There's not that much tall punish in the meta. Even Syndicate is cutting tall punish. So that just means that a deck like Overwhelming Hunger with Vi can kind of just benefit from that and just go really, really tall and greedy and there's no punish. So when you think about the decks that can punish it, AQ can punish it a bit. With Heatwave and Erden. But if you manage to pull out their Erden with your Quacks round 1, then they only have Heatwave as a tall punish and then you probably win. Line Pockets don't have any tall punishes at all. And then we have Blaze of Glory, no tall punish at all. And Double Cross obviously got some punishes in Yen, but honestly they're not running any Lux anymore. So this matchup can honestly still be very good as well because, you know, one tall punish, but that's it. So Vi is also a deck that could very easily drop in rating if the meta switched. But right now it actually just has a bunch of good matchups because the meta decks struggle to deal with a one very tall Vi. Then we got NR Witchers, and we're giving it a 4-star rating, which I think is kind of okay, but also a little bit generous. It is a deck that got a nerfed really, really hard last season. It lost 1 Adrenaline on Mentor, which makes it a lot more awkward to play, because you already have other Adrenaline 4 cards such as Kelda and the Witchers. And then you also lost a lot of Scytheman potential value by only counting 1 row, which also means that if you go up against an Erden player, you can't play around the Erden really without sacrificing a ton of points. And in general, it's just the long run potential is much worse. However, the short run potential is still almost the same. So if you're playing this deck, like, if you played this deck before, you always wanted to win round 1, if possible. And then you wanted to bleed round 2, because you have so much explosive power from the Kelda and the Witchers and AA. And potentially just 2 of them. That line still works. The issue is when you get red coin, you cannot contest round 1, you get forced into a long round 3, then you're just lacking points. So, 4 stars might be fine, I think. For a tournament, it's probably better because you can guarantee the blue coin, but in other match, like on ladder, getting red coin, it can feel very, very bad with this deck. We got Nature's Gift. I believe Patch brought this to the tournament, the top 16 qualifier, which he won. And it makes sense that this deck is decent, right? Because, well, it used to be good before, right? Before this season, but then something happened. We got Syndicate, we got AQ with Erden, so the 2 top tier decks kind of just crush Nature's Gift. So in a tournament against, a little bit better because you can ban one of the 2 most popular tier 1 decks, but against some of the other decks, you actually have some pretty decent matchups. Nature's Gift can usually outvalue board in a long round 3. You have a lot of these caresses that can purify the poisons and locks, which can be really annoying. And you also have matchup against Blaze of Glory, which is also pretty favored. So this is a deck that's good against the tier 2 decks, not so much Vi, but I would say Inner Witchers, Blaze of Glory, Double Cross, they're all super fine. So, if you're not queuing into the top tier decks, Nature's Gift is definitely a solid choice. If you're queuing into the top tier decks, you will probably start with this. Then we've got Dwarves, and I feel like we might have been a little bit generous here with the 3.75 rating. I tried this deck and I just tanked really hard, to be honest. I know other people have had slightly more success with it than I have. I think both Red Dream and Croatia has been doing pretty decently with it. And the deck is pretty straightforward, right? You type dwarf in the deck builder, you put in all the dwarves you find, and then you put in a consistency card and a tall punish. So that's basically it, right? It's an okay deck, but it's a little bit too wholesome. I think you will probably might find some wins against some of these tier 2 decks, but honestly, I'm not even sure which of these tier 2 decks you're winning against. I think it's a deck you can play if you are in ranked ladder or around 2400 at pro ladder, but as soon as you start approaching 2500, you will just, like, it's just impossible to climb with this. That's my opinion. But feel free to try it out and prove me wrong. Then we got Kelly. And Kelly took a big hit, not necessarily only because that the dash interaction got nerfed, so Carapace doesn't work on Kelly anymore. Oh, sorry, on dash anymore, but more so because the meta changed. Syndicate with their tunnel drill and Philippa and bloody good fun. It's just a nightmare to play against. AQ, you can try to take against it with the Fogtails, as this version is doing, but honestly, I'm not sure it's enough. Maybe it is if you play it well, but I think you'll struggle in these matchups. But maybe if you played well with the Fogtails, you can be okay against the AQ deck. Then there's Nilfgaard, which has never really been a good matchup for Kelly. Blaze of Glory is also not as good as it used to be, because now they're running this tall punish from leader, right? So they have removal reach in one of your cards, 12-point removal, which is very hard to play around. They need to double buff the Kelly. So, like, it's not as easy as when you went up against other Skellige leaders in the past. So that's it for the tier 2 decks. And then we also have a few decks here in tier 3. We have Deadeye Traps. This is a deck that was seeing a lot of play right in the beginning of the patch. A lot of people wanted to try this out. I never tried it myself, but I played against it and I don't think I've lost to it yet, maybe once. But it is a deck that tried to take advantage of the Eldain to transform all the traps and then have a huge finisher while just going no unit for the rest of the game. And it is very strong if it works. The issue is that when you look at this deck, then you gotta ask yourself, how do you actually win round 1, right? Don't really have any round 1 commitments. So quite often what happens is that you lose round 1, then you go into round 2 when you're getting bled. The opponent should then just bleed just the right amount of traps out of you to make your Eldain bad enough in round 3, so when they pass, you still need to make some catch-up play, which might be a Verno. And for round 3, you have an Eldain, maybe 2 to 3 traps, and you just don't have enough points. So I think it's still a fine deck if you're going up against some decks that really struggle with productivity, but against like a lot of proactive decks, you'll just get crushed with this. I'm afraid. Double Madoc here. With Imprisonment, this deck also got nerfed. You lost 1 adrenaline on Coldgrim. You lost 1 adrenaline on the Mentors, which means that you can't really play as many of these cards in the same round as you would like to, and you have to keep more of these pretty bad cards. The deck can still be strong if you manage to get the Madoc plus Kingslayer combo off, but if you fail to do that, it's going to be an uphill battle. And even if you manage to pull it off, you have to go into round 2 where you have to bleed. And looking at the sign, like imagine you have to go first in round 2, you have played your Cynthia. Like you have to make like a random location play or drop a dead Viper Witch or an Infiltrator. And if the opponent just responds with some sort of removal, then your entire game plan just fall apart. Then we have Lippy. I mean, Lippy is still playable, but it's probably just not very good anymore. It got some nerfs. The meta doesn't really suit it particularly well. So I wouldn't recommend playing Lippy either, but the deck is here if you would like to try it. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about these ratings. Do you agree with them? Do you think some decks should be higher, some decks should be lower, or do you think we nailed it? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.